Hi, I'm Tyson with Adventure Rig in the Utah desert with the MSR Hubba Tour 2. This is a tent that Callie and I have had the opportunity to use quite a bit. She recently broke her hand and we took a trip throughout Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and California and Nevada, doing a little tour of the national parks. And we slept in this tent the entire time, as well as a motorcycle trip that we're currently on. Now, our last motorcycle trip that we took, we actually had the MSR Elixir 3 with us, and we did a review on that a few years ago when we took it to Mexico. So if you're interested, definitely check that one out. Now this honestly would have been the tent to have for that motorcycle trip. The reason being is mainly this vestibule here, this gear storage area. This is absolutely huge. It's great if you're riding a motorcycle, maybe you're doing a tour on a bicycle. You can actually throw all of your gear in this entire area right here, and that leaves everything inside the tent to just be used for sleeping. Now you're not mixing everything into one big mess. Definitely helps a lot with organization. Another really awesome feature about this area is just how much headroom you have in here. So if it's a crappy day and it's storming and you're tent bound, this is actually awesome because you can sit in a chair inside of this area, and I'm 6 feet tall and my head just grazes the top. There's nothing worse than being stuck inside of a tent on a rainy day, and that feature just makes it a little bit more doable. One thing that I don't necessarily love about this area is the fact that the tent body is separate from this floor on this side. So there's a little bit of this open space right here. And the problem that I can see happening with this is that if it is raining, you could actually have a lot of water flowing through this entire area. We did have an instance like that when we were in Mexico, and I literally woke up in the morning to find that on the Elixir 3, in the vestibule, we literally had a river running through it. So that's one issue that I can see with this. Another problem that we've had with it is in those cooler temperatures. If you've ever camped when it gets colder, what you'll find is on the inside of the tent, you're gonna have condensation that forms against that cold surface. So what's actually happened, like right now camping in the sand, it's a lot warmer. We didn't have any issues once the weather warmed up. But when it's cold, collapsing this tent onto the ground, it actually would collect the sand against the water and the ice that had formed on the inside. And then when we'd go to use it that evening, we'd pull it out and there would actually be sand and mud stuck on the inside. Now, once I did learn about that, I tried to make it a habit to not let this inside fabric touch the ground when we would collapse the tent and roll it up. And that definitely seemed to help, but that is something to keep in mind. I personally would like it if this floor came all the way across and actually connected with the tent. Also on the front here, you do have this one strap and it is buckled, so you can disconnect it if you'd like. But what this does is basically just help to keep everything nice and tight. Another great feature about the tent is just how easy it is to set up. You can see that it's this entire exoskeleton design, and it actually only consists of 2 poles. So I've had tents before where it's like 3 or 4 poles and they differ by 1 foot each. And so it's really difficult to fumble through all of them. With this, that entire pole is all one and it stays together. And obviously you can break it down, but it all stays as one pole. This one right here on the very front is a separate pole that goes through its sleeve. So those are the only 2, and they're very distinct, easy to tell apart. The nice thing with the exoskeleton design is that if it's raining out, you can easily set up this tent and you're not having to put the rain fly over the tent after you've put the poles on, meaning that the entire tent gets wet as you're trying to assemble it all. With this, if it's raining, it's all gonna hit the rain fly as you're putting the poles together and clipping the rain fly onto it. Speaking of rain, MSR is using the Extreme Shield coating on the entire exterior of this tent. That's gonna be a more durable coating, providing that waterproofing for a longer amount of time. Callie and I did spend about 2 nights in the rain in this tent, and we never had any problems with water getting into the tent, which is always a plus. I feel like that's something you never really know is gonna happen or not. But with this one, we stayed bone dry inside. A couple last things to mention on the exterior of the tent. Like I said, you do have this pole that runs through this sleeve, and they have provided this piece of cord here to stake to the ground so that if it gets really windy, this stays put. However, you do have a loop here, as well as another loop here. They have not provided the cord for that, but if you wanted to add cord, you could really get this guy staked down and it's not gonna move in the gnarliest of conditions. Now also, on this side, they have provided cord, however, there's no stake for this one. And on the other side, it's a mirror image with another piece of cord. So if you find yourself in those really stormy conditions, you can stake the crap out of this thing so that it's not moving. Going along with the idea of stakes, I love the ones that they've provided with this tent. This was one of my gripes with the Elixir 3. The stakes were just a single piece of that round metal. They're really weak, so if you're trying to push them into hard ground, I've actually bent them a lot by doing that. These stakes are a square design, so they have 4 square corners to them. They are really sturdy. I have yet to bend one of these stakes, and I am extremely happy about that. The other item on the exterior that you can see is the vent here. This is a vent that you can open and close from the outside of the tent. It's not one that you can actually get to from the inside. So the tent does have one vent there, as well as, again, on the other side, another vent. That has been one of my gripes, is that there aren't a lot of vents. So with vents, you're gonna get a little bit of visibility as well as the ventilation. And I think that was one reason that Callie and I were having a lot of condensation collecting in the tent, just because we weren't getting enough airflow throughout it. The vents do provide a little bit, but definitely opening up that door on that side and opening up this door here helped a little, but it did not alleviate the problem. Ideally, I'd love to see more vents, especially in the very top, but with this design, I think it's a little bit more difficult to provide those. Moving on to the inside of the tent, we have a lot of storage, which I touched on in the beginning on the touring concept. Against this entire back wall, you do have one large mesh pocket that stretches the entire span, as well as on the inside of the tent, you have a mesh pocket that is along one end, as well as another mesh pocket that's along the other. And then on the ceiling, you have 2 small mesh pockets up there. Also on the ceiling inside of the vestibule, you have 2 large hooks where you can hang gear and keep it up off the ground. You can get a general idea of how large this vestibule area is with me inside. Again, I'm 6 feet tall. My head is barely just touching the roof right now. This area is about 58 inches wide, and that's something to talk about on the inside of the tent. This is a 2-person touring tent, meaning it's not very big. So inside, the width is 52 inches. Callie and I, with our shoulders touching, can almost take up that entire space. So if you're a bigger guy or you have really broad shoulders and you're gonna be sharing the tent with another person with really broad shoulders, that may be something to think about. Definitely easy to work around, however, it's a little bit smaller than we're used to. We also sometimes have Hank with us, who is a 90-pound dog. This area works out great for that because we can stick him in there, put his bed in there, throw some blankets in. He thinks he's inside the tent with us, which is awesome. Sometimes he wants to crawl in the tent and we can stick him down by our feet, and it does work out. Just remember, it's about 52 inches wide and the entire length is 88 inches. As long as you're not over 7 feet tall, you'll find that you can fit in the tent. One last thing that I'd like to touch on is the fact that packing this tent up is easy. A lot of times, the stuff sack that's included is a big long tube, and you've got to roll the tent up and stick it into this tube, and it never really fits quite the same as the first time you took it out when it was brand new. However, with this stuff sack, it is open lengthwise. So instead of having the narrow opening at the top and you're stuffing it down into it, it's actually opened along the entire length of the tent. It's really easy to roll the tent up and stick it in here. You have plenty of room for the poles and the stakes and a couple other items if you really want to throw them in. Again, this is the MSR Hubba Tour 2. I think it's a great tent for anyone who's going to be going out there touring, or maybe you just have a lot of gear that you're going to be bringing along. With this included gear storage area, I don't think you can go wrong. This is a tent that I think is going to last a long time. It's going to keep you dry, warm, and out of the elements. Thanks for watching. If you guys have any questions about the tent or anything else, please leave them in the comment section below and we'll get back to you. Also, if you're wondering where we are or what we're doing, check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Adventure Rig. Thanks again for watching. I'm Tyson with Adventure Rig.